I have with me today Emre Süner, who is a Turkish architectural assistant and designer who has recently returned to the UK to find employment after working in Qatar. Now, Emre has completed his BA architecture degree at a university in the UK in 2021. And Emre was accepted through the success of his incredible art portfolio after graduating high school and taking a gap year to figure things out. Now, during this gap year, he worked at Souk Wahif Art Centre in Doha, Qatar, and saved enough to fund his first year of studies in England. Now, Emery has designed some amazing furniture, which you can see on his Instagram account, Mr. Creative. The reason I wanted Emery on this podcast, though, is he has had to create a GoFundMe page to raise money to complete his education, or he would have not completed his degree. Now, if this wasn't bad enough, he's also fighting to get his last 3 months' pay from an architectural practice. Why does this not surprise me? Firstly, welcome to the fourth series of the Brock Architect podcast. And I just want to ask, how are you today?
I am trying my best to be okay. A little under the weather, to be honest, but I'm mostly good. Good enough
Oh,
to be speaking to you today, Jason.
oh, it's wonderful to have you. And you are, you are episode two of the fourth season. So we're really excited to bring this podcast back. And it's really lovely to have you and be speaking to you today. And I just wanted to start with a question, really, I ask most people is, what inspired you to pursue an architecture degree in the UK?
My father, because I had never thought about architecture ever. I mean, I've never been interested in construction, buildings, and all of that. But I was good at drawing. I had been a professional portrait artist, as you said, have been working in Sukwakif Art Center for about 9 months during my gap year and final part of my school education. And then my father suggested, you know what? Why don't you actually? Because when I was a kid, he had always said, if you get good grades, I will send you for a higher education to England so you could study. And I would always, use that as okay, Dad, I'll do whatever you say as long as I have a better future or something. So, and he always believed England, the word England, which by the way, we don't say United Kingdom, we just say England for some reason. And I learned that once I moved to UK at the time. I yeah, so he inspired me by saying, you're already good at drawing. So why don't you use these skills and transfer them to create cool buildings? And I was like, okay. I mean, I have nothing better to do now. I had taken a whole year off and I had just been drawing, left my Sukwakufu job. And yeah, by the end of 2017, I was in England um, studying architecture. But I began with foundation year.
Oh, right, okay, the foundation. Yeah, yeah, it's a great way of getting into architecture. I know quite a few people who've done that. Yeah.
Yet I have much to say about that, to be honest.
Well, as I said in the intro, you graduated 4 years ago, and I just want to, how did you came from Turkey and went to the UK. How did you adapt to architectural education and its many challenges? Because let's be honest, the architecture degree is one of the hardest degrees you can actually do in the UK and in many other countries as well.
Yeah, so as I said, I studied foundation first because that was the only way I could be enrolled into architecture. But foundation year, I was not even supposed to be studying because I already had a strong art portfolio, and foundation year did not necessarily teach about architecture. They taught us art, maybe some buildings in your free time. For a whole year, I basically just studied art, even though I didn't have to. I wasn't prepared in any way for architecture when I finally enrolled to first year to a point where the first few projects were group projects, but besides group projects, other projects where I had to do alone, I didn't know what a plan was, a section, elevation. That was the biggest challenge because everyone who had maybe had done foundation as well from other places or had gone to sixth form, which I didn't have, uh, probably studied AutoCAD and they know what a plan is, a section, an elevation, and whatever comes with architecture. I didn't know any of those. I was on the brink of failure up until the fifth project, which I just couldn't do anymore. I couldn't do AutoCAD anymore. I had a very old laptop, very old MacBook, and I tried my best to do digital stuff, but I couldn't because I hadn't learned any digital skills at the time. So what I did was I read the brief. I knew what I was good at, drawing. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to draw this entire project by hand on paper. And that's what I did. I basically drew that entire fifth project in first year and just presented that entire panel as hand drawn. My
Wow.
tutors, people who were critiquing my work. They thought it was actual AutoCAD work. That's how clean the lines were. If there were anything that I reprinted, I had deleted, which was the only thing I knew on Photoshop at the time. Just deleting some dirt or whatever from the photo that I took or the scan that I had scanned. And yeah, that project I got a first from. Fifth project, which was the second to last. And I realized, okay, so I have to learn the brief, I have to learn the rules, and then I have to use my strengths, which
Yeah.
again, it was drawing. And that's how I succeeded to second to last project. And it went on that way. I just kept getting first overall, even second year, third year. I just kept going. And at the same time, I was now learning digital skills. So now I was because at the time I hadn't known digital skills. Now I was learning them, but now I had seen how everybody was doing their digital work. I decided I want to be a lot more different than all the basic stuff everyone was doing. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So you
Thank you.
almost have done it in the way that I did it when I went to university. And that's going back to kind of 1994. We
Wow. You don't
yeah.
look day over
Oh,
25.
it was one of them for me that oh, I think it was ArchiCAD or something that was just coming in and AutoCAD was
Mm,
coming and some people were doing it. And I think that the important thing I wanted to sort of say from this is, people were able to do sort of basic renders by the time they'd finished their first degree. And they were the ones that were getting the firsts. And I think the tutors were so intrigued about the technology, they weren't looking past the actual design. So people like
mm.
you and me who are actually creating something using our hands and on the drawing board and doing things in a more traditional way were really a disadvantage. But it sounds like you've really navigated that. You've kind of got great drawing, hand drawing skills, but also have picked up these digital skills, which are absolutely essential when you go into the world of work. So I just love I did not know that you had managed to navigate your way through university with your hand-drawn skills. So it's refreshing to see.
But I have to say, even during that time, once I learned AutoCAD, it became what I was obsessed with. AutoCAD is my favorite architectural anything ever. If a tool, it's like a home to me, you know. I design everything there. I first hand draw what I want, and then I scale it in AutoCAD. And there are so many ways you can navigate in AutoCAD now. You can even do the 3D stuff, which I was at the time, by the way, 4 or 5 years ago. Um, I love AutoCAD. I do have digital skills, but what I like to do with digital skills is using multimedia, mixing media together to create things that are not ordinary. Um, because in the world of AI now, especially, I feel like there's much to be done by humans so that we could stand out now because everything is digital.
Yeah, no, that's one. It's wonderful to hear. And my next real question for you is because well, I want you to just really essentially describe your experience during your final year of your degree. And there's a lot to unpack here. It was during COVID-19. And as well as talking about that, can you talk about how you actually had to finance and fund your final year? I mean, this is just incredible, this story.
Yes, so I had worked in Sukwakov Art Center, which helped me save up a little bit. And my father had said, I'm going to keep my promise. I'm going to send you to study in England. I was like, okay. So, with the help of my father as well, I was able to make it. So, I was privately funded, and I couldn't have been more grateful. Yes, I was failing within the first year almost, but at the end of the day, I was now getting firsts all over, really. And then in the middle of my second year is when COVID hit. I was not ready. Nobody was ready. In fact, I had just done my placement um, at an architectural firm in Birmingham, and that's where right after that we had to present what we had done, and I think there was another one where we had to do a placement. I did it at a school, I think in Wolverhampton, and which was great. But then we had to present what we had done within these two things, if I remember correctly. By the way, I may be mistaken. But what happened was on the day that we were supposed to present, we were let known that we shouldn't be coming to university and we should just make a video. The country, UK, had not gone into lockdown yet. Cool. But now I had to invite my group mates to come and present with me on video. So now I had started recording that one day, that first day. And for some reason, the bloopers had included, oh, there's this something called COVID. We're just like laughing it off. But then the second day hit, and my group mates had to sleep over at mine. I recorded that too because it was just fun. And then the third day, it was getting more serious, and I realized, wait, that day my parents had booked me a flight, said, you're coming to Turkey immediately. You're not staying. We had been in lockdown for 2 weeks. UK had not been in lockdown at all. You're in risk. You're about to die. Everybody was so scared. So what I was about to fly when all flights got canceled. So now I started recording that too. So that went on for about 100 days of the first COVID times. First 100 days I had vlogged everything. But to come back to your question, third year again COVID. So I had to navigate beginning my final, strong year. This is when I'm about to become a part one architect. Cool.
Hmm.
What happened was someone in my class got COVID and came into class, and now we were all at risk. So all my classes for the semester got canceled. And then they hated me for speaking up about it, by the way. But come on, we're paying so much to be in studio, which I loved. I loved working in studio with my mates, discussing our projects. I just loved the studio vibe. I was at university for 7 days a week. Now at this point, I had begun my thesis, and there were about 2 months left of my architectural degree. And I'm working on my thesis. I trust myself. I'm working from home 17 hours a day. I am not feeding myself well. I'm just ordering in takeaways. I had health problems a few years after that, by the way, because of that very fact. And I get this message from university saying that they are going to be withdrawing me from the course if I don't pay within the next 10, 12 days. And I have 2 months of my degree. I had done 3, 4 years of architecture and design and all that stuff. And I was being threatened as a first class student. So I wanted to take initiative. I wanted to, because my parents were struggling just like everybody else during COVID. I was privately funded. My dad's business was struggling. I couldn't have asked him to do more because he already was. So I knew they wouldn't necessarily support this, but I was in England. GoFundMe is legal. So I opened a GoFundMe page. I posted it on Twitter. I posted it on my Instagram. I posted it on the school group chat just because now I'm literally about to be withdrawn. And if I had been withdrawn to come back in the following year, that's 1 year gone and my visa would have been expired. My student visa would have been expired. So I couldn't have afforded that. Not as a student, not as a person, not as it was just, and not as a successful student, really. So within 3 days, I raised 5,460 or 30 pounds, something like that. I have to check, but yeah, I raised it within 3 days because it went viral.
That's just incredible that you can raise that amount of money. And you're facing, you're facing it's your life. It's going to impact massively on your life.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you want to say to the people who donated? Because I mean, that's a lot of money.
Yes, yes, that's a lot of money. So I think my goal was 4,000. Again, I have to check. I'm not so sure because I don't like to go back in my
Yeah.
life ever. So I don't check these things. But I think my goal was 4,000 quid, and that's all I owed the university for the final year. And because I had raised more. And by the way, my classmates had donated too. Someone had donated £5, another 50, another 10. People in my class saw my potential. They also didn't want me to go to waste and be withdrawn and be threatened by the university, which I loved studying at. Just that was just horrible. And I wasn't even in studio. I wasn't even getting my money's worth.
Yeah.
Um, so I felt so grateful. I can't say anything more than uh, I individually thanked them, I think, when I saw them in person again at university right before it finished. But I could see, even when they chose anonymous, I could see their names, by the way. That is the thing about fundraisers online. They show your anonymous name, actually. So I could see that even though they donated anonymously, I was so thankful. I felt lucky to be believed in, really. It wasn't just my family now, it was also my peers who saw the potential and the work that I can do. Um, yeah,
No, I think it's just a reminder for people listening to this that universities are essentially businesses now. They are not
yeah,
what people think they are. It's essentially, you don't pay your fees, and they will cease you being on that course. And it is a really it's really tough, especially during something like a pandemic, where, like you said, you weren't using all of the available resources. You were probably using your own laptop to actually join meetings
yes.
and laying out money yourself. So I just think it's well, I'll hold my opinions, but I think it was pretty mean of what happened to you. I will just say that. And and kind of, so you've said how you found the experience, and you thanked your peers in a way when you could face to face. But how was it then when you actually got the money and to carry on and finish your degree? How did you feel, and how was the rest of your final year?
Yeah, so because I had now raised more than I had in my goal, I had also rent to pay for the rest of the year. For student accommodations, you're supposed to pay in terms. It's not monthly or anything. So I had literally the remainder and a little bit more. So the remainder of the money, and I added, I think, a few hundred more to pay for the rest of the year for my accommodation. So I could stay at least until August or something. Um, so that I also paid my rent with. So every part of that money that was donated, I didn't fuck around with for sure. I couldn't have, obviously. I could definitely joke about that because I know myself. So I used it to pay rent because I didn't necessarily need money for food. I was also working. I was an online art tutor as well. Um, and I did some other odd jobs. Oh, wait, actually, I just remembered. I was designing merchandise for Justin Timberlake at the time.
Wow.
Yeah. So I had Justin Timberlake's mom on my side. So I didn't necessarily need money for food. I was doing some extra stuff on the side, just not enough to pay that chunk of money as a student to the university at all at once, right before I'm literally about to be withdrawn. So I used every little penny to my education. Yeah. I
Ah,
just felt in a way, it felt serendipitous, really. It felt like it was meant to happen because I just feel so much gratitude towards relationships now, really.
yeah, no, it's wonderful. It's wonderful that you managed to get through and not have that worry on your mind that
Yes.
about paying for things, and you could just focus on delivering your final year. And that brings me on to we're gonna go on to another story, but I just wanted to sort of take this opportunity to, you do have a great Instagram account. You are a designer. You design furniture. You seem to be obsessed with the color red. I am going to drop your social Instagram, yeah, in the links after this podcast. But you know, your work on Instagram and your online portfolio as well. Can you just tell me what is this you do now with this, and what really inspires this color red? Why red?
So in 2021, after my graduation and even before, while working on my thesis, I had also started a full-time but a part-time thing that was all over the place at the time, a job online, work from home. Um, so again, I was making some money to get by, but also the World Cup was coming up, and I had studied in Qatar as a Turkish person. So my dad also suggested, there's a lot of opportunity now because of the World Cup. You should go back and see what lies there. And boy, was there lies. So anyway, I go back to Qatar after my graduation, which the ceremony was the year after, by the way, because of COVID and timing complications. But my official graduation is 2021. Um, I went back to Qatar to work for the FIFA World Cup. One of the main things that I worked on were um, merchandise, as well as exhibition style things. I did installation work which were featured on Qatar Airways, which was just incredible. I was part of the advertisement for the World Cup. My work was part of the FIFA World Cup advertisements. And I met a lot of celebrities, you know, so cool. One of the main ones that I loved meeting was Mohammed Hadid, Bella Hadid's father. He was so cool, just so down to earth. You almost can't even tell Bella Hadid is his daughter, the Princess of Nazareth. Anyway, uh, yeah, so I went back to Qatar for that, but I realized right after the World Cup, what happened was, again, I was still working on the part-time thing and some odd architectural jobs here and there, freelancing. Not much that I can remember now, but in 2023 in February 6th, is when the earthquake hit Turkey. And it hit especially my hometown, and my parents almost died. And that really shook things up for me. I couldn't come to my senses for months, really. And that's when for some reason, I can't even word it. I took my 3D pen again, which I used for my thesis because I was working on my thesis, and my thesis was about drawing and drawing in air and buildings and not losing the touch of hand drawing in buildings when we're building them. So for some reason, I got back in touch with my 3D pen, and I just started, creating plastic sculptures. A 3D pen is like a 3D printer, but you have more control because it's literally in your hand. It's like digital 3D modeling, but with hand. So that slowly developed into something more stable, something more. tangible. I was like, okay, well, this kind of looks like a notebook. Maybe I should make it a notebook. And the thing is, I know this is a structure. This has a structure. I have done its drawings for it. This is architecture, you know? Because now I can build. I have the degree for it. I am qualified. I do architecture. Why don't I do anything for myself? Why am I constantly working for odd jobs here and there? And I'm not talking about the merchandising stuff. I'm talking about the more architectural stuff. Um, why can't I do architecture and rebrand architecture in my own terms? So slowly, I suddenly made this really skeletal with red cushion-like stuff chair, um, which I can send you photos of later. I don't think I have yet. But that one, it was kind of tiny. I have not, it's not real yet, but it is a toy still. And it was just fun doing it. And it helped with my anxiety dealing with the earthquake that happened and my hometown wiping off of Google Maps. Um, anyway, so, and that summer is when I went through a huge friendship breakup where I was told that all my art and all my work was thanks to that friend, and I owed everything to her. And I was like, oh, I'm not someone who will speak up if someone swears at me. People swear, people speak, as long as they don't hurt me. And if I don't allow them to hurt me, they can't hurt me. So what I decided to do was, at the time I had just made one chair, which is the saucer. It is made out of recycled, repurposed, rusty metal rod, which I welded and shaped by hand and made it to fit my own back and hug me from the back. That is one of my favorite ones. At the time, I had made it pink and its opposite color green on the color reel to attract more attention and make it look less real. Because a lot of my portrait work at the time, people thought it was digital. Boy, I didn't know digital skills at the time. You know, I just draw, and if you don't believe it's real, it's on you. Anyways, so maybe that's why the portraits didn't kick off a lot. But so my work, I wanted to look less real, so I used those two odd colors.
Yeah.
But after this, when that happened, and I was told, and I was alienated within the country of Qatar among all my friends who were close friends with that person as well, I felt so frustrated and I couldn't say anything because I loved that person as my friend. So what I decided to do was attract more attention. I wanted more attention. I wanted to show, I wanted to exclamate that, yes, my work is mine and it's red and it is poppy and it's made out of love, but it's also the color of anger. So my next chair was red. Um, and then the one after was red and it was my ex's initial. It looks like my ex's initial. So it is made out of love. And this was not on purpose. It just appeared that way, subconsciously. So all my work literally comes from a place of love. So, and the people that I love in life, when they wear red, it looks good on them. On me, I don't like it. It is not my favorite color, but it is the color of love when I am creating. And I want to really um, emphasize on how much love is important when you're creating because you have to love what you do.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I just love the thing about the color it can convey. Obviously, the color red is anger, but it also means love and love is you love what you do. It's incredible. I would tell everyone listening to this podcast they must check out your Instagram because some of your furniture is just it's outstanding and so I really implore people to do that. We will put some in the this video
Yeah.
as well.
I can
Um,
say why I can say why I am doing furniture, by the way. As someone who studied architecture, I am doing furniture because it is a relatively faster way to see your creations be translated to real life, be tangible pieces quicker in a way. And also, there's just much more possibility, and you don't have the limitations of governmental approvals and I don't know why, you know, you can just literally make anything. And I do use repurposed materials. They are inexpensive. I turn them into pieces that now can be offered to be put in galleries first, and then they can be furniture, sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I like that, that it's more, you're getting more instant gratification. Some of my
Exactly.
projects, for example, they take 10 years to be built, so it's a long road for me. So yeah, no, wonderful. I think now I want to really come on to another difficult situation that you've had in your life that you've experienced, and it is unfortunately not too common in architecture. Sorry, it is very common, which is upsetting to me. So I want to talk about, how did the illegal withholding of your salary in Qatar affect your career, affect your finances, and did it sort of knock your confidence as a young designer?
Yeah, so after I had finished my part-time or slash full-time job from home, um, with my friend who we were working with together, I also had to go through some sort of surgery for the health reasons that were caused by my thesis that I was working very hard on and just eating trash. Which, by the way, I love my thesis. I would never talk trash about my thesis, but I was eating trash. So I think that's what caused the health problem. So I think ending that was a good thing. So I came home to get my surgery with my parents, and that's when I got an offer, another offer in Qatar, a full-time position again, at an architectural firm. Um, and I did. I went immediately right after my surgery because I was ready to start something new, and I was ready to um, restart architecture in Qatar again. Because I'm not afraid of restarting, and that's what I learned in the past year, by the way. And I didn't mind it. So I started at an architectural firm in Qatar, and they are actually a Turkish company, and it was sister companies with. So it was architecture and contracting company working together. So within that
Right.
company, I was an architectural designer. That was my title. And that's where I was doing more than that, though. I wasn't just an architectural designer, I was also the contractor. I was doing every sort of document. I was the only and best English speaker in the office. Um, I was editing everything on my laptop, doing everything on my laptop.
Sounds
I
familiar.
didn't.
Really does.
I wasn't given a laptop yet because I was in a probationary period, which is understandable. But again, company laptop, computer, come on. They didn't give that. That should have been a red flag, but it wasn't because I didn't mind it. Again, Turkish people as well, so I wanted to be. It was kind of understandable, and we just had this connection of some sort. And they were my brother's associates, so it was through that. And I did some incredible work there, and they could see it. However, my salary started coming later and later every month, until in the third month, I didn't get my third salary. And I now had to, I wasn't able to afford anything. You know how like this podcast is called the Broke Architects podcast? Yeah, I was a broke architect at the time. I was working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and yet I was being refused my salary, even though, and when you're getting a certain salary, you uh, set out your expenses accordingly. And I'm a quite a reserved person. I don't have big purchases and things like that, especially as a young designer. So I only want to work at an architectural firm just so I can go back home and do my own thing, which is exactly how I did it. That was my routine. I don't go home and say, "Oh, I'm too tired to do my own thing now." No, no, no. At least 3 hours after food, or maybe not even food because that might get me lazy. So I would still design my own work, do my own work, and at least journal about it, or write about it, or draw about it. Um, And then the third month, I had to say, well, I can't even afford to pay for my car to come to the office. There's no such thing as working from home there, so you had to go into office all the time, which is fine. I guess I like driving in the morning. It wakes me up, rather than getting up from bed onto your laptop. That's kind of, I understand. I think there should be that break. And that car drive was that break for me. I said that, and they said, okay. I said, just okay. I mean, I can't come tomorrow if I don't get any money. And they said, okay, well, you can work from home now then. I said, okay, fine. And I couldn't speak anymore after that because what the hell? What the actual hell? So I started working from home for about 10 days. And during those 10 days, working from home on my own laptop, doing their own company stuff, and literally doing literally everything. I was the design coordinator, even though my title was architectural designer. I dropped a pen, I think, if I remember correctly. It's a very nice pen. I just dropped it on my keyboard and my screen went black. And this is the laptop that I used for my university years. The one that I got in 2019 when I realized, wait, I need my digital skills. I can't keep going with a very old MacBook because I need AutoCAD. I need a laptop that will carry AutoCAD. And it just broke because first of all, I had put so much pressure on my laptop with the company assets and my work for years, for 5 years, 5 years of my work in my laptop, just gone. And then they paid a little bit of my money. And then my dad said, I'll support you. It's okay, which I'm so grateful for. He said, you can keep going, and this way they'll owe you more, clearly, obviously. So I said, okay, Dad, fine. I kept going to the office until one day at the end of February, I was fought with. I would never miss any respect to anybody, especially not people that I'm actually okay with. Maybe money-wise, there's some issues there, but like we're still humans. I
Yeah.
can see how well the company is doing or how bad it's doing. You know, I understand, but I was in a way fought with, and I had to leave the office instead of hurting anyone with my words or it escalating to something more. Um, and there was three CEOs in which one of them had decided to fight with me. 2 days I went again. Now it's the end of February. And on the final day of February, I received a message from one of the CEOs saying, you don't have to come to work anymore. So I was pretty much fired on text. I had to say it to the other two CEOs, and they said, we didn't agree on this. We didn't know this is happening. You're our best asset. We can't lose you. He can't disrespect you like that. But eventually, CEOs will be CEOs, and they all agreed with each other, and I was fired. And it was all because, I think, because they couldn't pay me anymore.
Wow. I mean, they have a duty if they cannot see the money coming in to inform you of this, but they should still pay you. And that's where contracts come in. But we don't need to get into all the legal side of things and what the laws are in Qatar. But it's just incredibly sad that you had to go through that experience. Especially so. I don't know, early on in your career, it's like not the sort of thing that you
Yeah.
would expect.
As
And
a,
I,
as a young designer, it made me feel like I was, in a way, not enough, but I knew, and they knew,
yeah,
my work was at least decent. I don't want to tickle my own pickle, but I knew I was decent. I knew they wanted me, but they just had to create drama to find a way to let go of me, which sucked. And after me, by the way, I recently learned that the company had completely shut down because after the way I was treated, everybody else left. I didn't bother to contact anybody, but I did have one coworker that I cared about who I contacted literally last month. And he said that we all left after you. We couldn't stay in a place like this after what they had done to you. So, yeah,
ah,
It's not my damnation. Not my
No,
circus, not my monkeys.
no, it's sad that if you listen to other episodes, there's some real horror stories about things like this and withholding salary and paying below, what the salary guides are in the UK. There's certain levels that you're supposed to pay at, even and they're not
Yeah.
much the minimum wage levels, to be honest, with you.
Yeah.
So it's just so disappointing that this experience has happened to you, like I say, early on in your career. So, okay, so that is your second really major experience. But I was just gonna ask.
One of the, by the way, the second in which the ones I'm talking about, I have more, but these are like the main ones.
Feel free if you want to.
No, I'm good. I think that was enough trauma for
There's
this
another drama.
segment.
Yeah, like you said, you want to move forward, and this is
Yeah,
this part of
exactly.
the podcast is about
Exactly. And
future.
there's just so much struggle within this planet that as a designer, I'm creative enough to build my own world. Uh, I
Yeah,
believe in myself and the potential that the world holds and the stories that can be told, be it within my life or another one that inspires me. All of these things I feel are meant to happen and they just happen so I could just become better and move from.
yeah, I understand it, and you've got a really good degree from a university in the UK. You would think that that would help you, navigate things better. In any other profession, I think it would, and it's a shame that it happens in architecture. So I wondered if you could maybe give some advice to students, recent graduates, other designers in design fields about navigating these difficulties as a creative. And maybe in a more, optimistic way, what would be your advice that you would give to people, having gone through these two experiences, really?
Okay, so in terms of finances while you're studying, for instance, I feel that if you feel in a very tough spot, you could definitely give it a try on fundraising pages and see how much you can raise, because there are many struggles within England, and that includes other places as well. But I feel like the value of pound really makes it a struggle to be a student in England sometimes. I truly believe that, but I think if they should definitely give it a try. Because there are some students that work full time as well, and they can't focus on architecture because of it. But as designers, I want people to believe that it, they are creatives for a reason. You're not just a creative because you paint well, because you have the mindset of a creative. It is not the products that you come up with. It's not the drawing or uh, I don't know, not any creations that you make that give you value. It is your mindset that changes the world. Um, in my case has been I've had some struggles so far, but I am playing. I am playing with architecture to build my own world because I do believe as designers, we decide to become designers because we can play around with this world. Be it graphic design, be it architectural, be it even landscape, you can have so much fun with. Um, so I want them to also make sure to create and play with their potential. If you have one strength, if you can draw like me, you can draw in 3D too. Try drawing in 3D. I've had years of practice, by the way. It's kind of difficult, but you can. You can transfer your skills from one place to another, you know. If you're an architectural designer, try, or just a part one person, you can try contracting. I prefer contracting to architecture many times because contracting is straightforward. It is what it is. It just is meant to happen. But with architecture, there's so much feasibility, so much possibility. So yeah, just play around with the potential of architecture, and your struggles also shape your story moving forward in life as a designer as well. So just because you're struggling doesn't mean it's bad. It can be bad, but it is mostly good because you can create a new world for you and for everybody else. And you can inspire. That's
No,
what
I
I'm
love
trying to
that.
do.
I love that, and it's similar, a similar question, really. But it's more about looking back on your journey, from studying in the UK to going to Qatar to work, because I know you're seeking work now in the UK, But what are the key takeaways have shaped your perspective on the architecture profession? Because you've studied architecture, which most people would understand it is the design of buildings, urban spaces. But you have kind of transitioned into furniture design, into graphics, into um, creating, merchandising as well. And you mentioned, even for people like Justin Timberlake, which is really impressive. So would you encourage, students not just to look at architecture in its purest sense or what people understand it and look at other avenues to use their creativity?
I'm no longer a student, but as someone in the field right now, I can say the one advice that I got while I was a student at university, one of my professors called Victoria Farrow, she told me because I was struggling in first year, I asked her, where can I go from here? Because I don't believe architecture is for me. I'm failing almost. And she said, architecture is an umbrella. You can go into so many fields from here on out. It can go into furniture design, it can go into graphic design, it can go into the landscape, it can go into literally every other profession that requires any sort of thought and possibly drawing. Um, and many others that I can't even name right now. But I'm speaking from experience. For example, just recently I did a project for Hermes, the luxury brand. You know, they wanted an architectural designer. They contacted me to design their window displays. They're quite famous for their window displays. They wanted me to design two of their window displays in Qatar for I think it's their only or there are two, and they wanted me to design for one of their stores, the biggest one, in Qatar, and I did it. Um, I sent to them, but I don't know what happens after that, to be honest. But yeah, you can even get into visual merchandising because you understand space. You have a very tight space within a wall and a window, or like a backboard or something. And you just have to create a world within that little space that you have. That can be a flat 2D space. You can even do something 3D. You can use your own style, which, by the way, Hermes gives you some creative freedom when it comes
Yeah.
to their visual designs and visual merchandising, because they do want to display artists' work as well, following Faubourg, their manifesto. Um, so there are many avenues that one can take after architecture. Even if you're currently if anyone listening right now, if they're in practice and they don't like it, they don't want to be in it anymore, but they believe they're good designers, get into something else, get into visual merchandising. You could do some great stuff as an architectural person, as someone who's been trained as an architect. You can do it, and you can probably do it. So just do it. I'm a firm believer in taking yourself and just throwing yourself off to something, just trying it. Because without it, you won't know. You have one life and you have to take every opportunity. If you don't like something, why waste a minute more than you're supposed to in it?
Wow, that's incredible advice. And going back to where you are now, so you now in the UK, you're looking for. Well, you tell me what you're looking for, and I just want to maybe also drop in there. How can people get in touch with you for any opportunities that they feel, having listened to this, that you would be great for?
Yeah, so I am currently looking for new opportunities. And I could tell you, give me a job, any job, just get me a job. But I do have standards as a designer to begin with, and as a human. Um, I want a place, a company that helps their workers, their employees to thrive within. Um, a creativity-driven workspace, be it in architecture, anything that can be landscape, that can be interior design, or it can be furniture design. I am capable of all of these because the past few years I've done all of them and more. And graphic design alone has been this one thing that just does everything. So I do graphic and everything. So not necessarily, I do not want to be a graphic designer, to be honest. That's one thing I do not want. Because I will do it everywhere else. You know, graphics are everywhere. You take a picture, that's a graphic. So I want opportunities in galleries, and I want to uh, stand out in places that help people like me thrive as creative architectural designers. Um, I want to build things that are tangible, that change the world. I am a firm believer in that. And I also believe that can also be in writing. It can be in architectural writing, that can be in magazines even. I read to journal every day, even just now, before this, I was writing a little bit. I just I just love getting creative and documenting things. Um, that also includes universities. I believe design schools are huge places of potential. So any potential, any opportunities that arise in any educational institutions, I would love to have an opportunity at as well.
It's wonderful to listen to you speak and talk so eloquently about, your journey so far, and your talent shines through. It really does,
Thank you.
and I just hope that people listening to this, they hear the podcast, they click on the links, and they kind of start to engage with you because you're multi-talented, and that's it is quite a rare thing, I think, in architecture, because a lot of people do think, oh well, the architecture, this is all it is, but what is this? And you can do so many other things, and we haven't mentioned even like UX UI and going into that whole
Exactly.
and IT experience that's so critical. I think it's in the top 10 of sort of jobs for the future, and we've got the
Yeah,
whole
I know.
I thing to embrace. But yeah, just wonderful to speak to you today, and thank you so much for being on the
Of
fourth season
course.
Broke
Of
Architect
course.
podcast.
Thank you. And anyone who wants to get in touch with me can get in touch with me through Mr. _creative on Instagram or Mr. _creative at outlook.com for opportunities.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much, Jason.